And that's round 2, everyone. It's been some very exciting hockey. It's been fun to watch. But in the end, as unpredictable as we think it is, as shattered as our brackets are, as wrong our predictions are, 3 of the 4 teams that made it to the 3rd round last year are back into the 3rd round. Yeah, it's predictable, yet chaotic. That's what we'll say. The 3rd round starts today, by the way. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders probably finish their game as this video comes out. But we're still talking about old news today. Alright, so let's get into it. Starting with some memes. It's been painful for these 3 captains. I can call them the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit at this point. But this is all of painful experience. Am I right? And I know a lot of you guys probably are not fans of the Vegas Golden Knights team, and this is my best imitation of how their Twitter will go if Vegas wins the cup. I know a lot of you might be cringing right now, and I probably am too as I'm recording this. Oh my. Alright, so let's skip the talk here. I'm not going to go over the CN Tower stuff. Like, I don't have the picture here, but like, you know, CN Tower turning red and blue from Montreal. I could talk about that Ludovic guy that outside the Bell Center saying, yo, 2,500 will feel like 25,000, I swear to God. Like, I could talk about that all day, but we have to get into our recap, so let's get into it without any further ado this week. Alright, so the first series here, Boston and New York. So this series went 4-2 for the Islanders. I don't know if y'all expecting that, but it really proves that the Islanders are made for the playoffs. Power play for Boston, 36.4%. That's the one positive aspect of their playoff run. Great power play. Islanders also great on the power play, 28.1%. Penalty killing for Boston, 75.7%. Islanders, 61.5%. That will need to improve against Tampa for sure. Top 3 point getters from Boston, Pastrnak, Marchand, and McAvoy with 15 points, 12 points, and 12 points respectively. Yeah, they've been racking up points, that's for sure. Top 3 point getters for the Islanders, 13 points for Pajot. He's had a great playoff run. Josh Bailey with 11 points, and Anthony Beauvillier with 11 points. Goaltending, Tuukka Rask, 6-4, 2.36 and .919 save percentage. He had a difficult series, and clearly he was injured. And I don't want to say props to him for playing through it. I think, in any sense, Bruce Cassidy should have started Jeremy Swayman at some point, but it never happened. And Tuukka Rask will need to have surgery, and I believe he'll be missing the start of the regular season next year. For the Islanders, Ilya Sorokin, 934 save percentage. That has not changed since last week. Varlamov, 4-3, 925 save percentage. A very interesting tandem here, as both goaltenders were able to basically win a series for the Islanders. And that's the first time that has happened since Patrick Roy and Hayward were a goaltending tandem long ago. Alright, so game 1, 5-2 from Boston. Sorokin and Rask started the game. Beauvillier scored on the power play. Pastrnak scored with 24 seconds left in the first. 88 the shots from Boston. Pastrnak scored again in the second. Pelech responded 126 later. McAvoy scored. Pastrnak hat-trick. Taylor Hall empty netter in the third. Shots were 40-22 for Boston. The Islanders win Game 2, 4-3 in overtime. Varlamov started. Coyle scored 2:38 in. Bailey, Palmieri, Pajot scored in the second, 2 power play goals. Bergeron and Marchand stormed back to tie it in the third. Cizikas with an overtime winner after a bad turnover by Jeremy Lauzon. And I think this is a big game for the Islanders not to fall down 2-0, and that's a recurring theme. They don't fall down 2-0. They did fall 2-1 in both series against Pittsburgh and against Boston. As we see in Game 3 here, Boston wins 2-1 in overtime. Varlamov started. Smith scored early. No goals until Barzal scored a goal with 5:26 left in the third to tie it. A late power play for the Islanders killed off. Shots are 21-9 for Boston in the third, but only the Islanders got a goal. Marchand with the overtime winner in the wrister top corner, and that must have hurt. Must have stung, but it didn't sting for long. As in Game 4, 4-1 for the Islanders, Varlamov started. Mayfield and Hall fought in the first. There's some scrums, and then Martin and Tenorti fight. Pastrnak missed a wide open net, hit the post. I think that was a pivotal point in the series because it really felt like a frustrating moment for the Bruins. Krejci did score first, and they scored against his first against the Islanders since October 23rd, 2015. Goaltender interference challenge was unsuccessful, but no goal on the ensuing power play for the Bruins. Palmieri didn't tie in the game. Krejci reviewed for major spearing penalty for basically just a chop in a sensitive area. It was rescinded to a slashing minor. Barzal got the go-ahead goal with 6:57 left, and 2 empty netters were scored. Game 5, 5-4 for the Islanders. Varlamov started again. Pastrnak scored 1:25 in. Bergeron missed an open net later. Barzal scored 1:11 left in the first. Palmieri scored early in the second. Marchand highlight reel goal to tie it. Bailey and Eberle scored consecutive shots. Power play was 3 for 3 at that point. Rask was pulled after allowing 4 goals on 16 shots. Swayman was in, but Nelson scored on the first shot against Swayman. 1:59 in the third. Pastrnak responds 1:49 later to make it 5-3. Krejci made it interesting, made it 5-4. Shots were 44-19 from Boston in the game, 18-3 in the third. No Islanders shot after the 5th goal that they scored, so 18 minutes without a shot. Jeremy Swayman credited with the loss, even though he only played for less than 20 minutes. In Game 6, 6-2 for the Islanders. Rask and Varlamov start. Palmieri opened the scoring. Marchand tied it on the power play. Nelson with 2 goals in the second, both off bad defensive plays. Rask with a bad pass, a turnover. McGrizlek and Palmieri scored another one. Rask 4 goals on 17 shots. Clearly his lateral movement was a little slower. Marchand scored early in the third, but Clutterbuck and Pulock scored empty netters, and the Islanders advanced in the Final Four for the second straight year. That hasn't happened since the 1980s. Goaltending tandem each win all 4 games in their respective rounds since Patrick Waugh and Hayward. So the Islanders, they fell down 2-1 in this series, just as they did against Pittsburgh, but they win 3 straight. I think that's a big thing going into the next round, because they bend, but they do not break. They always keep games interesting, and they don't fall down along the game. They've never led, I think, through the first period. It's either been tied or if they've been trailing. But they're 7-1 when it's tied after the first period, because they've outscored their opponents 18-8 in the second period, which seems to be the source of their scoring. Yes, the Islanders have scored the most goals in the playoffs so far. Even more than Tampa, more than Vegas, more than Montreal. See, they go under the radar. They're not as boring as we think they are. And the fans are just awesome. We'll see what the Islanders can do against Tampa. I think they can do very well against Tampa. In the rematch, we'll see what happens with that. And now let's move on to the next series. Alright, the next series here, Colorado and Vegas. So this series went 4-2 for Vegas. Vegas winning 4 straight. Pretty convincing win here for Vegas, even though it was 6 games. Power play for Colorado, 41.4%. Dropped a little, but Vegas had a solid penalty killing for some points of this, but Colorado's power play is still very good. Vegas 14.3%. That does need to improve for sure against Montreal, against their number 1 penalty killing. It's going to be tough to score goals against them on the power play. Penalty killing for Colorado 81.8%, Vegas 71.4%. Top 3 point getters for Colorado, the entire first line of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog are the top 3 scorers. 15 points for McKinnon, 13 for Rantanen, and 13 for Landeskog. For Vegas, William Karlsson quietly is the top point getter for Vegas with 11 points. Jonathan Marchessault 8 points, and Mark Stone 8 points. Goaltending, Philip Grubauer, .914 save percentage, 6-4 record. Yeah, he is a Vezina caliber goaltender, but he did drop the ball a little bit in those final few games. I'm not taking anything away from him. He had a great first round, a pretty good second round, to be honest. Just the last few games, they got swamped by Vegas. Marc-Andre Fleury for Vegas, definitely their MVP right now, I'd say. 8-4, 1.91 goals and average, .923 save percentage. It'd be a little bit foolish to bet against Marc-Andre Fleury and Vegas at any point now. But you'll see later that I'm making that same mistake, going to that same rabbit hole again. Alright, so game 1, 7-1 Colorado. Leonard started for some reason, probably to give Fleury a little bit of a break. If that was the strategy, it sure worked in the end. Rantanen with a backhand goal early. Landeskog scored. Saad and McKinnon scored to make it 4-0. Janmark was hurt after Graves hit him. Carrier takes penalties by going after Graves. Landeskog scored. Karlsson responded. McKinnon, highlight reel goal. Match penalty to Ryan Reeves. He get a 2-game suspension for his intent to injure against Graves. The Avs got a 9-minute power play in the game, which was obviously very rare, and Makar scored on that power play. So after game 1, it looked like Colorado might sweep it. That's what it looked like. Vegas had no answer for the Colorado offense. But little did they know. So game 2, 3-2 for Colorado in overtime. Janmark and Reeves was out. Early goal for the Avs. Saad with a 5-hole goal. Martinez ties it, but Joe scores on the power play after in the first. Vegas took 4 penalties in the first, and that I think was a big theme in those first few games. Just taking way too many penalties. They did get more disciplined as the series went along. I think that's what led them to the series win. Smith tied the game in the second. Shots were 15-6 for Vegas in the second and third periods. 40 shots in regulation for Vegas. Smith with a penalty for slashing in overtime. Not something we see all the time, an overtime penalty. Rantanen scored the overtime winner in the first Avalanche win that is under a 3-goal difference in these playoffs so far. Now, after this game, we know that Vegas outplayed Colorado in game 2, but Colorado was able to pull off the win. And it looked like Colorado was continuing their good play. But as the series shifted to Vegas, we quickly found out that Vegas had more to say and wouldn't go down without any fight. 3-2 for Vegas in Game 3. First 100% capacity crowd in the playoffs. More than 17,500 fans. Insane saves from Grubauer in the first. Shots being 15-3 for Vegas. Karlsson opened the scoring in the second, but Soderberg tied it 1:29 later. Rantanen scored early in the third, but Marchessault and Pacioretty scored 45 seconds apart for the lead. Fleury with big saves late, and what a game. Shots were 43-20 for Vegas in the game, and they fittingly won it. Game 4, 5-1 for Vegas. McNabb and Reeves was in. Saad scored 150, and that was definitely a recurring theme. Like Colorado scored in the first few minutes of the game. Marchessault scored in a very chaotic sequence after a turnover by Nemeth. Basically just domination by Vegas throughout this game. Pacioretty and Marchessault with goals in the second. They also got a hat trick in the game. So as the series was tied, all the teams won at home so far. So in Game 5, as the series shifted back to Colorado, it was imperative that Colorado won this game. But this game ended up going 3-2 for Vegas. In overtime, O'Connor with his first game for Colorado. Newhook was in, Janmark was in. A more even game to start. Rantanen missed an open net. Saad scored with 0.8 seconds left in the first. Lots of chances for the Avs in the second. And Donskoy scored off a wonderful pass from Newhook for a 2-0 goal. Back to the Saad goal for a second here. Sorry about that. Back to the Saad goal for a second. He scores with 0.8 seconds left, and Fleury knows it's a bad goal. So he says that it's his bad. Didn't blame anyone in front of him for bad defense or anything like that. Put it on himself and had a great game afterward. That's the attitude that goaltenders need to have. And it works. So 2-0 for the Avalanche after 2 periods. But Tuck and Marchessault scored 3:04 apart to tie it. Stone with the overtime winner, 49 seconds into overtime. It feels bad for the Avalanche knowing that turnovers cost them the game. Just a couple turnovers. Game 6, 6-3 for Vegas. Taves and Holden scoring their first shot for their respective teams, 52 seconds apart. Within the first 75 seconds of the game, big chances both ways. Martinez hits the post, and it's, I think, 6 posts apiece at this point. Carlson scored 1 for the lead after 20. Rantanen scored a power play goal early in the second. Keegan Kozar with his first career playoff goal. And then Burakovsky scored another goal in an elimination game. He has 10 goals in 14 elimination games. That's on par with legends like Pavel Bure. Pretty amazing story over there. Pietrangelo scored with 17 seconds left in the second. Carrier and Pacioretty scored in the third, and a big save by Fleury. And Vegas takes the series. Yeah, they played much better than Colorado, and they really made Colorado look like just mediocre team. They made Colorado look normal. Vegas looks unstoppable going to the next round, and they're facing Montreal. But Montreal, as you know, interesting story for them. Alright, we'll see what Vegas does in their third round. They make it to the next round. Colorado, they might have some questions to answer, but they'll be back. That's for sure. Alright, let's move on to the next series between Carolina and Tampa. So this was a quicker series, a 4-1 Tampa win. Power play for Carolina was 18.2%. Tampa Bay 41.7%, which is first in the league. Penalty killing for Carolina 76.2%. Tampa 77.8%. Top 3-point getters for Carolina: Sebastian Aho 11 points, Jordan Staal 8 points, Andrei Svechnikov 8 points. It was a tough time to score for them. Not many points for anyone, really. For Tampa, Kucherov, 18 points. Stamkos, 13 points. Braden Point, 8 goals, 12 points. Kucherov leading the league in points. They're doing great. Goaltending, Nedeljkovic, bless his heart. He played great. But it wasn't enough. 920 save percentage, not enough. Peter Mrazek, he had a very good Game 3, but very tough Game 4. Vasilevsky, of course, being the classic Andrei Vasilevsky we know and love, dominating with some big performances. He's had shutouts and deciding games. Just an amazing goaltender. It's hard to imagine him not winning the Vezina again. Game 1, 2-1 for Tampa. Savard was out. Lots of great chances for the Canes in the first. The crowd was into it. Braden Point opens the scoring. And Bean scores to tie it early in the third. And Goudreau sneaks one between Nedeljkovic's legs from a sharp angle with 7:21 left in the third. And that's the play you see on the picture here. Hedman, big block with 6 seconds left to let the Lightning hang on. Game 2 is 2-1 for Tampa. Stingy first period for Tampa Bay. Killorn scored a sneaky low shot in the second. Shots were 21-11 after 2 for Carolina. Trocheck injured after a collision with Warren Foegele. Svechnikov scored with 1:30 left, but Tampa held on once more. And at this point, a 2-0 series lead, and it looked great as Tampa won both games in Carolina. Game 3, 3-2 for Carolina in overtime. Mrazek started scoreless in the first. Pesce and Aho scored for the Canes, but 2 straight power play goals by Point and Killorn tying the game. There were a lot of questionable icing and offside calls. Coaches were riled up. This was the 20th overtime game in the playoffs. Sebastian Aho with the overtime winner on the power play. Another situation where there's a penalty or a power play in overtime and they take advantage. Game 4, 6-4 for Tampa. I think this was definitely the pivotal game. Mrazek started once more. Penalties before the game started. Brady Shea thought he had a high-stake penalty, but the refs didn't call it. Shea went to the box, and the refs had to pull him out, which is very, what a bad look for the refs. Point opens the scoring on a great pass. Early power play for Tampa. Canes kill it off and score twice in 39 seconds for the lead. Teravainen and Fost with the goals. Stamkos scores on the second shot of the period on the power play. So they really just took advantage of their opportunities. Hamilton responded 41 seconds after for a 3-2 lead. Slavin scored a goal for a tough angle for a 4-2 Carolina lead. Looked great for them at that point. Vasilevsky allowing 4 goals on 17 shots. Kucherov scores on the power play. Johnson's tied in the game. Stamkos scored on the 6th power play for Tampa. Kucherov scored in the 3rd. 8 goals in the 2nd. And Tampa 3 for 6 on the power play. Tampa coming back and winning this game, I think, was the nip in the bud for Carolina. And it was hard to see them coming back in the series from there. Game 5 in Carolina. 2-0 for Tampa. Trocheck and Niederreiter were in after their injuries. Nedeljkovic started again. Point gets the opening goal in the 2nd after Vasilevsky made a big save. Chernak scored late in the 2nd, but after the buzzer sounded, still 1-0 after 2 periods. And Ross Colton scores to make it 2-0. And big saves by Vasilevsky to get the 29-save shutout. Another shutout in a deciding game for Vasilevsky. And that sends Tampa for a date against the New York Islanders. So, Tampa and Vegas, I think, are flying high right now. And Tampa just flying on all cylinders. 41.7% on the power play is nothing short of spectacular. And if they want to win, they'll keep that up. Hard to bet against them. They're probably the favorites to win it all and repeat right now. But now, before we go into anything else, let's move on to the final series of round 2. And that's Winnipeg and Montreal. So the series was a sweep for Montreal. Quite shocking, to be honest. Winnipeg 16.7% on the power play. Montreal 18.8%. Penalty killing for Winnipeg 79.2%. Montreal 90.3%, first in the league. Top 3 point getters for Winnipeg. Kyle Connor with 7 points, and Scheifele and Wheeler each have 5. Toffoli and Suzuki and Armia have 10 points, 8 points, and 7 points respectively. A lot of shorthanded goals for Montreal. Goaltending, Connor Hellebuck, 4-4, 2.23 goals and average, 931 save percentage. People meme on him like after the Vezina candidates were announced and he wasn't in it, he just didn't care. Well, he certainly had some tougher nights after that night. Carey Price, 8-3, 1.97 goals and average, 935 save percentage. Typical Carey Price. Game 1, 5-3 for Montreal. Habs scored early. Kotkaniemi and Stahl getting the goals. Lowry shorthanded goal. And then Suzuki scored late in the first. Forbort and Gallagher trade goals in the third. Then Connor scored a 1:42 left. Evans scores the empty netter, but Scheifele injures him, as you see in the photo, with a high hit, and Evans was stretchered off, and he was injured with a concussion. And that would suspend Scheifele for the rest of the series, or for 4 games, but the series ended before Game 6. Game 2, 1-0 Montreal. Scheifele was out. DeMello was out. Ben was in. Evans was out. Lehkonen was in. Toffoli with a shorthanded goal in the first low-event game. Pionk with a great skate save in the last minute. Late chance for Connor, but Price with a 30-save shutout. So Game 3, 5-1 for Montreal. Perry opened the scoring. 2 posts to the Jets in the second. Lehkonen scored. Armia scored a shorthanded goal. Jets penalty on the goal. Lowry scored late in the second. Petrie was injured. Suzuki scored in the power play, and Armia scored another shorthanded goal in the empty net. And they have not trailed since Game 5 in round number 1 against Toronto. So Montreal doing great, 3-0 lead in the series. And in Game 4, 3-2 for Montreal in overtime. Winnipeg, I think, gave it all they had in this game, but still not enough. Petrie was out. Gustafsson opened the scoring for Montreal. They had the opening goal in 9 of their 11 games so far in the playoffs, and that goes a long way. Lehkonen tips one in with 51 seconds left in the third. Oh, in the first, sorry. Typo. Stanley gets 2 goals to tie in the game in a 3:49 span early in the second. But shots were 13-4 Habs in the second. Shots were 39-16 in regulation, and Toffoli wins in 1:39 overtime. And with that, Montreal is the Kings of the North. Did we expect this? No. Are we glad? Maybe a little. Definitely a huge success story, and whatever they can do against the Vegas Golden Knights, they will do. And I have faith in them. I do. Well, we'll see how long the story goes for Montreal. It's going to be a tough one in the next round, but maybe they can hang in there and maybe, just maybe, make Canada proud. Alright, so injuries for the round 3 matchups here. Tampa and New York. The Islanders have Del Cole and Wallstrom out for Vegas-Montreal series. Nosek out for Vegas. Petrie, Evans, Merrill, and Tatar out for Montreal. Of course, some of these players might return at some point in the playoffs. In the next round. And Evans probably will. Tatar probably will. So, yeah. Alright, those are the injuries. Let's go over some takeaways. 31 of 66 games so far were 1-goal games. 22 of 66 games so far went to overtime. It's a third of the games. The Canes have allowed in the first goal 9 of 11 games. I called them the comeback kids, but they end up losing games too, so not really. The Habs have scored the first goal 9 out of 11 games. 8-1 when scoring first. It's going to be a big story against Vegas in the next round. My predictions, they're all in red. They were all wrong. My goodness. I don't know how this happened. But it is a fact that every single lower seed won in round 2. Unprecedented. Sometimes you just gotta bet on the lower seed, because they've won 9 out of 12 series so far. So my predictions for round 3 going to be the Islanders in 6 games against Tampa. I know that is very, very much a hot take. And Montreal winning against Vegas in 6 games, another hot take. If I do believe that the underdogs have a chance, because sometimes grit and the perseverance can trump just pure talent. Now, we'll see how good the Islanders and the Canadiens handle the adversity. It's going to be tough for them, but I don't really expect them to win. But I have just a sneaking suspicion that there will be a nice little upset here. Well, alright. That's going to be it for our recap today. Not a very long one. We'll see you next week on June 20th, where we go over the first half of the third round. And the third round already underway today. As we speak, Tampa and New York going at it. Don't know the game has ended as of me uploading this video, but let me tell you that hockey has been great, saving grace for me, as it's not a great time for socializing, so it's been a little tough on the mind. And with hockey here, I think it's our glimmer of normalcy and of just happiness. Even when your team doesn't win, even when your favorite team isn't in the playoffs, still very, very enjoyable to watch. And I can't wait for more. We got possibly another 3-4 weeks of hockey, so let's enjoy it all the way. Alright, so that's going to be it for the recap here today. We'll see you next week and see what happens. Islanders in 6, Canadiens in 6. Call me crazy, but that's what I think. Okay, so that's it. Until next time, we'll see you later. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend.